The Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis, referred to as the Vatican of the West, but by us locals, it is simply known as the New Cathedral. The cathedral building sits on the corner of Lindell Boulevard and North Newstead Avenue. It is referred to by Google Maps as an opulent church with gilded mosaic art. That's a pretty good base description of the cathedral, as it is a mass of wealth and art. Today we will be studying that art, along with the building itself, the history of the building, who built it, and who were they. Now come with me on this journey, and I say to you with a joyful heart, welcome to the Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis. Emil Frey was born and raised in Bavaria. He received a degree from the Munich School of Art. He was prepared to set up shop and live a life as an accomplished craftsman, but disaster struck. Just before he could start, a political movement called fascism was created. Fearing for his life, Emil hopped on the next ship out of the country. His hasty escape landed him in the center of the Big Apple, with the clothes on his back, a family to feed, and a dream to realize. He wanted not to just be a renowned craftsman, but a successful businessman in the land of freedom. But everyone has to start somewhere. Emil worked as a glass worker in New York for about 3 decades as a craftsman for several companies that kept him down in doing the jobs no one wanted to do, which was not ideal for his ideals. Fed up with this, Emil packed his bags and went on a cross-country journey to San Francisco. Having barely walked through the door of his new home and hung up his hat, then he received a life-changing letter. His years of hard work and his background in the art field of glassworking back in Munich had garnered him attention more than he had thought. He had been invited to work on the St. Francis Xavier Church in St. Louis. He picked his hat back up, locked the door, and headed back the way he came, all the way to St. Louis. This was the big break he needed. 3 years later, he owned a company he had started called Emil Frey Glass Arts, and was renowned all through Tornado Valley and up the Rockies for his amazing glass work. He was happy he had everything he wanted. He even had some time to practice his hobby, mosaics. Apparently, the mosaics were so good that when Archbishop John J. Glennon needed to decorate his cathedral, he called up Emil to cover the 83,000 square feet of ceiling with mosaics. I've never met the man, but I bet he wished he wasn't so renowned, as this would be a monumental undertaking. Emil, never one to back down from a challenge, gathered his workers and tools and went to work. After getting deep into the project, Emil had a massive problem. All the artists that worked for him were glass workers. He needed mosaics, and lots of them. So many, in fact, that instead of creating a branch in his current company, now known as Emil Frey Associates, he created a whole new company, now somewhat famous Ravenna Mosaics. Now he had 2 companies he was running by himself. Emil figured he'd reached his maximum potential, and then some, and realized that he couldn't run both companies. He gritted his teeth, and with somewhat consoling knowledge that he wasn't selling the company to some other glass artist, he sold the company to his son Emil Frey Jr. Emil ran Ravenna for several years before he remembered he was a glass artist, not a mosaicist, and sold the company to the Hudick brothers, who finished the installation and immediately tried to blot out the existence of the Emil Frey lineage, which is to this day still a sore point to them. Even this, though, couldn't overshadow Emil Sr.'s pride in their work. When he took on the job, he didn't just want to make a pretty ceiling. He wanted to create an open book for all to read, so that they might see the goodness that is God.
Stained glasses and all were a teaching device in the Middle Ages when people didn't read, and that was one of the ways in which they were instructed. And we are still being instructed. As you sit there and you realize you're around, when we talk about a community of souls and whatnot, we feel like we really are surrounded by them. Here are all the saints, right on our walls and windows.
He created in this many years of work 2 themes: the religion section and important figures of the church. The former was to teach those seeking the goodness of God, and the later was to honor all those people who had dedicated their lives to Christ, as he had dedicated his magnum opus to Christ. Only those who are forgotten are truly dead. This quote refers to the fact that people live on inside us and through us. The people they touched will carry their will and pass it on to the next generation. The fear that your life hasn't touched anyone is a common enough phenomenon. To rectify this, people will make or do things so their names will live on. For example, Osama bin Laden ordered the attack on the Twin Towers on September 11th, killing thousands. Now, where those towers once stood, there is a massive monument to those who died, and in infamy, bin Laden will be remembered. Not everyone is this way. For example, artists create beautiful works of art, so people will say, "Wow, look at this. This was made by so-and-so." This is especially true for George D. Barnett of Barnett, Haynes, and Barnett. Barnett and his partners wanted to create something that would do 2 things: draw people closer to God and to make their mark upon history, as stated in a letter between Barnett and John J. Glennon, the Archbishop of the Diocese of St. Louis at the time. Realizing the vast importance to me of my continued relations to this part of the construction, but feeling unable to express fully to your grace, personally, the depths of my interest in the matter, I believe it is proper to submit my views on this subject to your grace in writing. I hope your grace will accord me full justice in adjusting in my future relationship to the cathedral. I feel the entire success of my creation will be hazarded unless passed on to me as working of strength and magnificence. There is another feature connected with it, upon which I might dwell, and that is petty jealousy. The professional world too frequently grasp at these situations and magnify them in their strife against one to my great disadvantage of future employment. I stated a fact beyond contradiction. If my association with the building were to terminate before its completion through any cause other than death, would work a great hardship. It would be far better I had never been associated with this building. Lavish luxury, serene sanctity. The cathedral is a massive monolith that could be described as the container of one of the world's largest works of art. But they'd be wrong. The cathedral isn't just a container of art. The cathedral itself is a work of art. So much went into the cathedral, and so many spent their whole lives working on it, to call it anything else would be a travesty to those who worked to create it in all of St. Louis.